Hello, everybody, and welcome to the show. This is Multifamily Chronicles. I'm your host, Adrian Danila. Today, we have with us Caroline Ferguson. Caroline is Senior VP for Southwest Utility Solutions. Welcome to the show, Caroline.
Thank you, Adrian, for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Caroline, why don't you start by introducing yourself to the audience? Tell us a little bit about yourself, about your professional background, and how did you end up in multifamily?
Sure. I feel like everybody I talk to that shares with me their multifamily origin story, what's consistent is that none of us planned on being in this industry. It's all just kind of happened. My story is similar to that. I have been in multifamily since 2017, I guess. So 2023 was my 6-year anniversary. I joined the industry while I was still a student in college studying entrepreneurship at the University of Houston. My mentor actually connected me with the owner of Southwest Utility Solutions. I was what you might call what's the word? Eager, maybe that's the right word, an eager college student. I was working 3 different jobs. I just gotten married, and I was in the middle of the entrepreneurship program at the University of Houston, which is the #1 undergraduate entrepreneurship program in the United States. And I reached out to my mentor and I said, hey, listen, I don't have any experience in sales or marketing. I am very much involved in, the startup world within my program at school, and the 3 different jobs that I was working, they were all various startups or tiny little, boutique business. And so this notion of selling and growing and marketing a product that wasn't necessarily a startup was very, very foreign to me. But that was what made it exciting. And so I reached out to my mentor and I said, hey, listen, is there anybody within your network that would be willing to take a chance on a scrappy, we'll use that word, a scrappy, 19-year-old, 20-year-old, who is willing to do just about anything to build a portfolio of skills for sales and marketing? And he connected me with the owner of Southwest Utility Solutions, Andrew Leach. And we realized very quickly when Andrew and I connected that his serial entrepreneur heart and my desire to grow and build things was a good fit. And so the rest is kind of history. I started as an intern here at Southwest Utility Solutions, building up kind of a growth strategy for the company. And when I graduated from the University of Houston in 2018, I came on full time and continued to grow our marketing and sales leg. Today, I am the Senior Vice President of Revenue Development for the company. And what I like to tell people that means is anything that touches revenue, I get to be a part of creating the initiative behind, whether that be people, processes, systems, and services, inbound, outbound, external, internal. So if it's touching something that contributes to the growth of my company and my people, I get to be a part of that, which is really exciting. And so and I think the word is intrapreneur, an entrepreneur with an existing organization, it is an incredibly exciting role. The industry, being in multifamily for going on 6 years, Southwest Utility Solutions is not the only thing that I've had the opportunity to, I guess, work with and to build. Andrew and I have gone on to build a couple of other brands together, which is really exciting. We also started Atlas Trash Services, which is a Valley trash company. We've built, we're in the process of building a rent reporting company. We've built a pay portal together. There's a small IT company that we've built together. Just a bunch of different stuff. So it's incredibly exciting to have a partner like that wants to build and is willing to try new things. And multifamily, in my opinion, is the industry to do it within. There are so many opportunities for creating new solutions in this industry. So it's very exciting for an entrepreneur. So that's a little bit about me and my experience in the industry.
Amazing story, right? Starting as an intern and now being a senior vice president of a company. Uh, Tell me about a few things that really help you get where you are today, and also tell me about what drives you.
Awesome. I think that my mentor said it best when I was studying, when I was in college. And it's something that I have to remind myself of constantly, like daily. And it's something that I don't think you ever are perfect at. And it's this notion that your network is your net worth, right? It sounds like a super cliche phrase, but that cliche phrase has changed my life. This concept of what you give and what you pour into people is, that's going to be returned back to you. The relationships that you feed, the connections that you tend to, the seeds that you plant, and the people that you do life with, those seeds bear fruit someday, right? Whether that is, it serves you professionally, whether that serves you personally, in whatever capacity that ultimately serves you is to be decided. But, I think one of the things that helped me, step into this opportunity was taking relationship building really seriously. When I got started in multifamily, obviously I was a college student, and being a salesperson on the supplier side in an industry that is built on the backbone of forged relationships was incredibly challenging. I was going up against industry people who had been here for an entire lifetime, and not only them, but their families had, right? Like there were generations of their family that had been in multifamily, that had built companies, that were within those companies still. And so there was, this moment for me at the beginning where I sat down and said, before I could even consider growing a brand, new or existing, I had to grow my relationships first. That's what this industry is built upon. And, that had served me finding Andrew, and it was the same notion I took into multifamily when I got started. So, one of the things, to answer your question, right, one of the things that I think has served me well is taking community really seriously, and not going towards community with an eye towards what's in it for me, but more along the lines of, if I just focus on serving, if I just focus on bringing value, if I just focus on listening to the people around me and trying to understand, well, what is it that you're seeking? What is it that you're looking for? Is there an opportunity for me to help you? Is there an opportunity for me to, bring value to you in some way? That has served me really well. And I think, to answer your second question, Adrian, what drives me? I am so incredibly passionate about watching solutions impact people positively. And I mean that in a way that is beyond sales and marketing. I'm talking about that in terms of the impact that they have on a human life. Like, I think about my team, right? And I think about every single one of the employees that works for Southwest Utility Solutions, and how each little change or each little, maybe improvement or adjustment or whatever that is made here within our organization, I'm going to call it a solution. Each new solution that is built or implemented, that has real impact on the lives of my team. And that drives me probably more than anything, is knowing that what we do here, yes, it impacts our industry, which is so exciting, but it also feeds my team. And I get to watch them raise their families, and I get to watch their kids grow up, and, they're being fed and taken care of and provided for because of what our company is doing. And that makes me incredibly emotional, because that's the whole point. That's, like, as an entrepreneur, for me anyway, that's the dream. It's how do you create as much positive impact as possible? So I'd say that's what drives me.
You said something earlier that is truly amazing. And I'll say not very common for someone your age, right? When I was your age, I was anything but. And that's what you said was you plant the seeds and they eventually going to bear fruit. That means it's a process that takes time. And that means that it takes patience for for you to wait for that seed to bear fruit. So how did you find patience at this young age?
That, I've never been asked that question as a follow-up, Adrian. So hats off to you. That's a really great question. Oh, patience, man. I wish I could sit here and tell you, oh, well, you know what, Adrian, it's so easy to just be the most patient person in the world. You just sit and wait and it's always going to pay off. I really struggle with patience. It does not come naturally. It is very difficult. It is it is a skill that I'm not great at, is being patient. In terms of relationships though, and intentionally choosing to be patient, when seeds are planted within the people that you do life with, I think what allows me to be patient in that regard is it takes time. You have to understand and know that relationships are built upon a foundation of trust. And I would be irresponsible and kind of ignorant if I just, by default decided that everybody within a 10-foot circle of me was my BFF and was always going to have my best interest in mind, was always going to prioritize my family and my needs and my desires, right? That's not real life. That's not how it works. Relationships and friendships and partnerships, they're built upon a foundation of trust. And so when we think about planting seeds, within the people that we do life with, I always think about, okay, well, that is step one in working towards a foundation of trust, and trust building takes time. That doesn't happen overnight. Creating validity in who I am. I know I'm an authentic person. I know that I'm honest. I know that I am compassionate, but doesn't mean that the world around me knows. And for me to assume that they're just going to believe it because I tell them, right, that's who I am as a person, that's not how any of this works. So I think understanding that when you plant a seed, what we're working towards is building trust, and knowing that that takes time has allowed me to be patient. And also, I think that as an entrepreneur and somebody who's very passionate about startups, that takes time, right? Everybody loves the glam, if you will, of being a business owner, and the hustle and the grind, and how, oh, it's so wonderful, quit your 9 to 5, go pursue your passion project and make that your full-time job, right? Everybody loves the sparkle and the glitz of that. But the reality is that being a small business owner and being an entrepreneur, and truly an intrapreneur, so an entrepreneur within an existing organization, all of that takes a tremendous amount of patience. Your vision today is going to be different than the vision next year, 5 years, 10 years. Hopefully your vision has evolved. To see something through, right? To go from ideation to execution, that process is not a fast process. It takes time if you want to do it correctly. So that also requires patience. So I think the patience that maybe I innately have because of that passion has served me well in being patient with the seeds that I plant, or, try to plant in the people around me. But I don't really know, Adrian. I wish I was more patient than I am, truly. I wish I was more patient.
Personal experience, I learned that things that we don't do by default, the ones that are kind of against our nature, are the ones that are most impactful for us in our lives and in our careers. Do you find that to be the truth for you?
Absolutely. I think all good things take work, right? And we didn't come out of the womb being incredible salespeople or, great leaders. Those skills had to be refined, right? Like our swords had to be sharpened, and that takes time and work. And yeah, I would agree with you 100%. The more I work towards having a spirit of patience, the more I work towards having a spirit of gentleness and empathy and kindness. I think the more those traits pay off in the long run, I see them showing up more so in my life. Like, oh, I worked really hard towards being patient. Okay, I'm seeing that show up in lots of spaces in my life, right? So yeah, I'd agree with you 100%.
For those in the audience that don't know, you're also a podcast host. Tell me about how this idea came about to become a podcast host, to have a podcast. And if you look back at Caroline, the beginner, what have you learned? What can you share here, right, with the audience? And also, how long you've been doing it?
Yeah. So podcasts have always been, I think, kind of a fun side project for me. When I was in college, so I'm going to answer this question by backing up a little bit. So the entrepreneurship program that I was a part of at the University of Houston, I was surrounded by 35 other classmates that were all also very, very, very passionate about entrepreneurship. And there were a couple of classmates of mine that I got really, really, really close with. And we were kind of the go all the time, all hours of the night, all days of the week, all minutes of an hour kind of people, just going constantly. And so what that ended up looking like was we had 50 different projects at one time that we were working on. And to promote those projects, they were all, I mean, like, oh my God, at one point my friend and I were trying to make, so silly, homemade dog cookies, because for whatever reason we thought that, oh, we could sell dog treats and make a cute little small business out of that. And then at one point we were building a meal planning business, and we were going to market that service and sell it. And then there was a co-working space that I was working on for a little bit, and just all these random little projects. One of the ways that we learned very quickly that would be a good platform to build community within for each of those projects was on a podcast. And so during college is really when I discovered Anchor, which has been purchased by Spotify. But it was the app that I used as the podcast, I guess, platform for each of those little projects. And the purpose of it was, how do I just build community? How do I build community? How do I reach people at scale? How do I get inside of the room of, that small business owner? How do I get within the office of that team of people? How do I get within, the ears of that high school student? How do I reach people that maybe I don't have the opportunity to do life with in person? And so podcasts were that medium for my friends and I. So we played around with it in college. When I graduated from college, I had a few of my own personal podcasts. One that was faith-driven. There's a small clothing business I ran for a while, and we had one to promote the mission of that business. And so it was something that was fun because it meant that I got to have conversations with people. For Southwest Utility Solutions, what I have found is it has been an incredible platform to build relationships like this that's happening right now. I mentioned earlier when I joined Multifamily, I'm sitting in a room and I'm watching people that have literally grown up together, doing business together. They've been in this industry for 20 plus years. And I'm coming in with, an entrepreneurship degree in one hand and zero experience in the other hand. And so I was watching people do life together, though, and I desperately wanted that. And at that time, the only way that I could rationalize getting that was sitting down with people and listening to their stories. I wanted to learn from the experiences and the stories of the people that have been in the industry for a super long time. And so that's what the purpose of our podcast was. The Southwest Utility Solutions podcast was a medium and continues to be a medium for me to learn from people in our industry. I didn't come in with the generational knowledge that is your family working in multifamily, or working at the site level as a leasing agent and working my way up and then transitioning to the supplier side. I didn't do any of that. And I realized very quickly that because I didn't do any of that, it is my responsibility to work overtime to forge relationships and to be authentic about that and not be this spammy, gross, snake oil salesman. That's so inauthentic and disgusting and gross. But to work overtime towards creating authentic relationships, planting those seeds so that trust can be built, so that in 5, 10, 15, 20 years, because I have no intention of going anywhere, now I have the 20 years worth of experience and I've got the relationships to show for it. And I've built trust and people know who I am and they know that I'm authentic and I'm going to do what I say I'm going to do. And if I don't have an answer, I'm going to go figure it out. So it was a means to forge new relationships and to also give people a place to share their story. There's so much wisdom and power in listening to what other people go through and experience. And it was a way that I was also kind of trying to give back to the industry by saying your story is valuable and there is so much fruit here to be learned from. And I want to give you a platform to do that on and within. So that's kind of the background with me in podcasts and Southwest Utility Solutions podcast.
I want to switch to personal branding right now, Caroline, and ask you how important is personal branding to you? What does it mean to you? And if you have some things that you could share about how you build your own for the audience.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that your personal brand is so incredibly important. I would like to find somebody who says it's not important, right? Because I think we all know at the surface level that if you're going to be a professional, right, or maybe even not a professional, just a human being that wants to have some sort of impact, or you've got something you'd like to say and you think that it's going to enrich the lives of the people around you, or maybe there's something to be learned from a failure you experienced, a mistake you made, just something that's going to positively impact the people that are around you and you do life with. Having a personal brand is really important. The way that I like to think about creating and working towards building a personal brand is it's got two components, right? You've got the branding that is you and maybe the company you're connected to, which it's really important that is an honest reflection of who you are, that's authentic, that is respectful, and it is hopefully aligned with what your core values are and what the core values are of the organization that you've partnered with. But the other half of this notion of personal branding, in my opinion, is, well, when everything else fades to dust and somebody logs online and they see Caroline Ferguson, what do I want them to remember? What is it that I want them to maybe learn from something that I experienced? Or is there something that is so meaningful to me that I think is going to positively impact their life if they experienced it, if I shared it online? So in terms of building a personal brand, I think you have to keep both of those pieces in mind, right? It's one thing to promote your business, right, and your company and your job online, if that makes sense for your role. But it is also just as important to promote who you are as a human being. When I think of LinkedIn, right, I think that there is such an incredible opportunity to share in a digital way what your core values are, what matters to you, who you are as a human being, the impact you're trying to have, the value that you're trying to share within your network and for your network. And maybe that's connected to your job and maybe it's not. When I think about posting on LinkedIn, content that is not related to, Southwest Utility Solutions, in my mind, what's running through my brain is, if my daughter, she's 2 right now, but let's pretend she wasn't 2. Let's pretend she was 15. And for whatever reason, she had the LinkedIn app downloaded on her phone and she had a profile. And maybe she's just a real go-getter and she's trying to build her professional network at 15. Let's just pretend for a moment, okay? What goes through my brain is, if my daughter logged on to LinkedIn tomorrow, and she's scrolling through her news feed, and she's going there for maybe guidance, professional wisdom, to learn from people who are maybe successful professionals. I want to be a part of the content that she's consuming. I want to be a part of that voice. I want to have a say in that conversation, for her to be able to log in and read something about, we all go through failures. We all experience really difficult and challenging times. And what matters is how you come out of that, or this is what it means to show up authentically and respectfully and professionally, and just all the stuff that is part of this ongoing conversation of, what does it mean to be a leader? What does it mean to be a successful professional? What does it mean to be authentic? What does it mean to, be a leader worth following? All that stuff. Young people get on LinkedIn and platforms like LinkedIn because they're seeking something. They're seeking counsel. They're seeking guidance. They're seeking mentorship. They're seeking wisdom. So, when we think about building our personal brand, I have to think about, okay, well, that's the conversation that I want to be a part of. So what can I do to build a personal brand that is a part of that conversation, right? Like, how do I show up within the content that, people like my daughter or my employees are scrolling through in their free time? What do I want them to see? I don't want them to see drama. I don't want them to see negativity. I don't want them to see, dishonest clickbait lies. I want them to see stuff that's going to enrich their life. So I know that's a really long answer to your question. But when I think about personal branding, I mean, truly that's what I think of. I want to be a part of the conversation that my daughter one day is going to scroll through and read about. And, I want to have a voice within that conversation.
Very well said. Legacy.
Yeah. That's the word, legacy.
I think in one way or another, we all strive for, legacy.
Yeah.
Our time is limited here. So what can we do to live beyond that time, beyond the physical time?
Yes.
Next, Caroline, I wanted to ask you, do you see any value in companies, whether they're on the supplier side like your company or management companies, teaming up with industry influencers to enhance their brands? And if you see value, and then do you see this happening in the near future?
I think there is an immense amount of value in that, right? I have to think about where our attention goes, right? My attention is going to people who take up space online. It just by default, that's where it's going, right? Which is why it's really important to, if you want to be a part of that conversation, you have to work towards building your personal brand. Back to your other question, right? But for companies to create partnerships with people of influence online, I think there's an immense amount of value if it's done correctly. Depending on what the goals are and the objectives are of the company in question, partnering with somebody that has created an audience that is listening to what they have to say is tremendously value. I mean, it's the equivalent of what we're all trying to do when we pay for, optimized Google ads and social media marketing, right? Like that's the equivalent of what we're trying to do. Just this human being has already built an audience that is, hopefully, if you've done your homework, is the audience that this organization is trying to tap into, right? But to create a partnership or forge a partnership with somebody who has already done the hard work, that has already planted the seed with their network, that has, watered the seeds, fed the seed, and has built a foundational layer of trust within their audience, has created the rapport, that's immensely valuable. Now, I think that there is a way to do it correctly that we're all still trying to figure out and navigate. You don't want to be inauthentic, right, in forging a partnership with somebody that has influence. We're not talking about paying an influencer on YouTube $1 million to promote Southwest Utility Solutions within their video, right? Like that would be, in my opinion, an inauthentic way of forging a partnership. But to create a real relationship and partnership with a human being that is of influence online, I think that there's immense value in that. It just has to be done correctly.
Caroline, the next section of this conversation is going to be the rapid fire question section. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Books, what are your favorite books? Fiction, nonfiction, professional books?
Talking to Strangers by Malcolm Gladwell is my all-time favorite book. And anything by Max Lucado, I absolutely love if I'm talking about a personal book. I have Atlas of the Heart sitting on my desk right now at home by Brene Brown. I don't even remember the author's name, and I mailed it to, it's not on my bookshelf because I mailed it to Mike Brewer, but The Gold Standard, I can't remember the author's name. That's also one of my favorite books of all time. So that's a few.
What advice would you have for someone ready to enter the real world? They just graduated high school and they're ready to, get a job, be on their own, or they just graduated college and the same thing, they're ready to take on the world.
Yeah, my advice would be listen more than you talk. There are a lot of people that are going to be in the same room as you that have been doing whatever it is that they're doing for a lot longer than you have. And there is power in listening, and it is not weakness to not always have something to contribute. It's okay to be quiet. It's okay to listen. There is a lot of power in that I don't think we talk about enough. So my advice would be listen more than you talk.
Caroline, in the last 3 years, what belief, behavior, or habit has most improved your life?
Well, in the last 3 years, I had my daughter. So sweet Adeline, she turned 2 in June. So I think that the belief or behavior that has most impacted my life is recognizing that I have a tiny human that's watching everything I'm doing, and that my daughter is influenced and shaped by every choice that I make. And while she is her own human being, very much so, and she has her own fire and craziness, she is absolutely influenced and molded by the environment that I put her in. And while that is, my home, the same applies to my employees and my team here. And having Adeline has made that more evident to me here within my company. So I think the belief or behavior that's most modified me is having a kid, but just remembering that everything you do, every move you make, every word you say, every thought that you think that comes out through your mouth or your actions is having an impact on the people that you do life with.
Caroline, when you feel that you lose focus or you feel overwhelmed, how do you recover from that state?
Oh God, I wish I had a good answer for this one. Well, if I have an immense amount of time, I go to the beach, because the beach is my happy place. But if I don't have time to go to the beach, what really helps me is sitting in a room with nobody else in the room with me, with a hot cup of coffee, and putting my phone away, turning my laptop off, turning the lights off if I can, and closing my eyes and resetting and thinking, why am I here? What was the point of this? Why am I in the midst of whatever this challenging time is? Why am I still working hard towards achieving whatever this goal is that I'm working towards? What was the point? I have to think back to my why. I've got pictures of my daughter on the wall in my office. I've got a board to my right it's a gratitude board, and it's filled with things that I'm grateful for. And when people come into my office, I always tell them, I need you to write on my wall and tell me what you're grateful for. Looking at those things really helps me reset and remember that whatever the challenge is, whatever the obstacle is, whatever the hard thing is today, that the season is going to pass. Seasons do. And how I choose to react and respond in this moment is going to impact my next season. So I need to reset. I need to remember what I'm grateful for. I need to remember my why. I need to look at my daughter and remember it's going to be worth it.
Next, Caroline, I want to talk a little bit about innovation in multifamily. And then I'd like to talk to you about some new impactful solutions that you have created and taken to market in your role at Southwest Utility Solutions.
Okay, awesome.
So could you give us a few examples of some innovation or some things that you brought to market, something that didn't exist before your time in the industry, something that you do different, something that your company does differently thanks to you, something that you brought to the table?
Oh God, I wish I could take credit for it, but I can't. But I think that there is something that my team does really well, that people that are in, my specific part of multifamily, this utility management space, I think that there's something that my team does that is really, really, really well within our little part of the industry. And I don't know if it's a new thing. It's not really a hard and fast service that, we're going to talk about the traits of and the price of and that kind of thing. But it's a value that I think that we do a really good job at prioritizing, and has ultimately kind of become a lost art. And so that is helpful to us because it's not a lost art to us, and we just do more of it. But it's this notion of intimacy and being ridiculously intentional about maintaining intimacy, regardless of how much we or my client scales, how much we or my client grows. Maintaining a degree of intimacy. I watch all these prop tech companies, and I've been tracking from the quiet dark corners of my office their growth and their movement and the excitement that has been them evolving as companies for as long as I've been in the industry, right? Which has been 6 years, which the grand scheme of things is not that long, obviously, I know. But I think in the last 6 years, the industry has experienced a lot of exciting tech evolution, especially with this introduction of AI and just everything that we are watching unfold in front of us right now. I think multifamily has experienced a high degree of innovation. I'm going to say innovation. That's my word. I don't know as an industry if we have done a good job at continuing to prioritize intimacy as innovative technological solutions have scaled. Everybody's all excited about replacing human beings with technology and how do we automate this and how do we automate that, and it's okay, just call this one number and you'll be connected to a floor of 4,000 robots that hopefully can answer your question. And that's all exciting and stuff, but we tend to lose sight of, okay, this is a people business serving people. Everything we're doing is intimate as an industry. Everything we do affects somebody's ability to live in their home, to raise their family within their home, to better themselves within their home. And we're talking about people's homes here. Like, this is an intimate industry. And I think one of the things that, to go back to your question, Adrienne, one of the things that I don't know if it's me, I think it's my team, that I see us do well and differently, and that has made us incredibly unique, is this degree of intimacy, of being in communication, of being aware of what's happening, of being able to have a phone call with somebody and be able to solve their problem on that same phone call instead of redirecting them to 17,000 different people has really set us apart. I think there's a lot of reasons for that. I am not the largest utility management company in the country. I have no intentions of becoming that. But so not being gigantic has allowed for maintaining a high degree of intimacy. I think that's kind of a scapegoat, though, to say, oh, we're too big to have that level of communication and touch. I think that's a little bit of an excuse. If it matters to you as a company, then you figure out a way to implement it and apply it to your behavior, right? Like if intimacy and being good communicators was important to you, you do it. So I think intimacy is what we do differently, and I'd be willing to bet better than a lot of the people in my space.
Next, Caroline, I want to take you to entrepreneurship and partnership and learn more about your experience as a founding member and partner at Atlas Trash Services. And I want to discuss challenges and rewards of starting and running a business, because you mentioned earlier on that it looks very shiny from the outside. I just want to get inside, right? Just kind of get the real deal of what is it like to be to start a company, to be an entrepreneur, and to be, a founder.
Yeah, it's hard. I think that, the best way I know how to describe it is it's like the lump of coal that just stays a lump of coal, and then maybe at some point that coal will be put into a fire and it'll like create some warmth for you, and there will be some goodness you get to experience from it. But for a really long time, you're a piece of coal that sits in a bag and you're a little dusty and everything that touches you gets a little dirty. But at some point, it's going to get set on fire and it's going to create warmth and it's going to be awesome. And you're going to be able to cook your food because of me. You're going to be able to warm your house because of me. So, that's a silly analogy, but it's hard. Business ownership is hard, and starting and launching and running a small business and a startup is hard. For the right person, it is incredibly exciting. And I'm grateful that I feel as though I am that person where it is super exciting, but it's hard. And one of the things that I think has become poison within our culture and our society is this notion of, well, anybody can be an entrepreneur, anybody can be a business owner, anybody can blah, 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 right? Like, I get it. I get that you can do whatever you want to do. I get that you can be whatever you want to be, but not everybody can be an entrepreneur, and not everybody can be a business owner. And guess what? That's okay. Not everybody can be an employee. Not everybody can, do lots of things. And that's really okay. I think that we have gotten in our heads that if everybody can't do everything all at once, then somehow we're failing. And it couldn't be further from the truth. Entrepreneurship is really dirty. It's really challenging. It is really scary. And, there's a scene. So the movie Air, right? I think it's an Amazon Prime movie. It's the story of Michael Jordan and his partnership with Nike. There's a scene in that movie where the guy who forged, I think it's Matt Damon's character, who actually ended up forging the relationship with Michael Jordan, is everything is on the line. His entire department within Nike is on the line. If he can't get this partnership there, he's looking at a floor of people that are going to lose their job. And he walks out of his office and he's standing there and he's looking at everybody. And I got so emotional watching that, because that's the feeling that nobody talks about when you lose a large client, or a partnership you were pursuing doesn't go the way that you thought it was going to go. And you're walking out of your office and you're staring at a team of people that you're trying to feed, that pay their bills because of you. And you're looking at them and you're like, who doesn't get to eat this month? Because I'm obviously not going to eat, right? You guys are going to eat, but there's not enough to feed everybody. So what's going to happen, right? Like, what happens next? That's the part of entrepreneurship that I don't think enough people talk about. It's when you go over this hill of, okay, we've got a client, we're going, this is exciting. Well, when it doesn't go well, because it won't go well all the time, 9 out of 10 startups fail. You've got real lives, real people that are impacted by that. And that is incredibly difficult. One of the pieces of advice I would give to anybody who is considering pursuing a startup, self-funded, or a startup that they've raised money for. All of our startups that we've built here are self-funded. We've never raised money, which is a lot of the reason why I think that, in terms of PR and press and publicity, you don't see a lot of what we're building immediately, because everything we do, we fund in-house. And I mean, some pretty large projects that are being built right now. And Andrew from day one has always told me, this is his advice, and it's advice that I'll share with your audience, Adrian, and anybody who's listening. You can't starve your startup. You can't starve your new infant small business. You can't starve it. When people try to live out of and eat out of a startup from day one, it is really dangerous. You go out and you raise $1 million. That's super exciting. Congratulations. But honey, that's not your $1 million. Like, that is the facade of all the money you've raised. I know it's exciting, but you don't live out of that. Don't get comfortable with that. Don't get used to that, because that's not real life. Having something else that's feeding you, that's paying your bills, it's taking care of you, that is also happening while you are pursuing launching a startup or building a small business. That's always, in my opinion, the way to go. It's the way that Andrew here in our office has gone. It's one of the nuggets of wisdom, and he's given a lot, but it's one of the, I would say, largest nuggets of wisdom that he has given me, is don't starve your startup. I think way too many people starve their startup, and it's a huge reason why 9 out of 10 fail.
Thank you for sharing this. This is extremely powerful, and I hope a lot of us learn from that. I know I will, for sure. It's something that I've been, toying with, maybe sooner or later, to start my own journey, to work on my own, but time will tell if that's gonna happen or not, and if I'll be good at it too. So, Caroline, next I wanted to ask you about industry trends. I want to get your insights on current trends in multifamily and your approach on analyzing market dynamics to identify opportunities for your businesses. Where do you see those opportunities in the current environment?
That's a good question. I think that people maybe overanalyze what the answer to this question is supposed to be. If you're not listening to your customers, you're not listening to your clients and hearing what their pain points are, you have no business innovating and attempting to create a new solution. So when I see people talking about the trends in our industry, and I look at what they're personally doing, and it's a big pile of nothing, I take all of that feedback and analysis with a grain of salt. When I think about trends and advancements and new exciting things that are happening in multifamily, I have to think about that in terms of, well, what am I watching my clients experience? It is, go back to the word intimate. It is intimate to what my company is experiencing, what my clients are experiencing, what my customers are going through right now. I have to, I have to go from this 20,000 foot view of the industry as a whole, and I've got to narrow it down to, okay, well, what am I watching my portfolio experience? And I think right now there's this huge push, and I'm watching my clients go through it. And I think, parts of the industry can probably, this resonates with them, but I'm watching my clients struggle right now with pursuing this next generation of renter, and that the people that are leasing apartments today, people who are you know, seeking out a new place to live, and they're renting maybe for the first time, or, you know, they've just graduated from college and they're moving into their new home, and it's their first time being independent and whatever. I'm watching my client struggle with pursuing that prospect. I think that renter looks different than what they've ever looked like before. I think that their needs are different. It's a completely different type of renter. It's a completely different type of person. You know, I think the industry wants to believe and think that this type of person can be pursued and, you know, hooked by a fully automated process, that this type of renter doesn't want, you know, human connection, or this renter doesn't prioritize, you know, in-person communication for whatever reason. I am of the opposite end of that spectrum. I think that the renter today that we're catering to is craving intimacy, that they're desperately looking for a real human being that can answer questions, that can be authenticity in a very inauthentic world where everything else around them is automated and digital and quick and fast and convenient and accessible. This renter is looking for a place to go that has human beings running it, that has human beings serving it, that, you know, when they are considering making, you know, a property their home, I think self-guided tours are really cool and really exciting. And I get it. I mean, there's an immense amount of efficiency in removing the human. I understand, but I am watching within my customer base, I am watching a struggle with the implementation of all of this automated tech and cool stuff. That it's not producing the results, I guess, that everybody expected it to. And I truly think that's because this renter is not craving the automation that every other aspect of their life is already giving them. When it comes to their home, when it comes to where they're going to raise their families, where they're going to, you know, go through layoffs, when they're going to go through applying to 500 jobs on Indeed, where they're going to experience, you know, bringing a baby home from the hospital, where they're going to experience love, heartbreak, new opportunities, when they realize, oh, this is so exciting, I can go from a 1-bedroom apartment to a 2-bedroom apartment, right? And they get to experience the growth of all of that. And I think that where those things happen, this renter desperately wants a higher degree of human touch. I don't know if, I mean, I really don't know. I'm not an expert in any of this, Adrian, but I don't know if the industry is accommodating to that right now. I think we're still pursuing, you know, a means to being as automated as possible, when the renter, are we actually listening? Did they actually want to talk to a human being? What's incredibly frustrating is calling a property and nobody being available to answer their question, or reaching out to a utility billing vendor because they have a question about how their water bills were calculated, and nobody is able to answer that question because you've got robots answering the phone or chatbots attempting to answer questions online. And well, that's not helpful because they don't know the answer to the questions that people are asking. So I, you know, that's what I would say.
Caroline, incredible conversation. I really enjoy our time here. In closing, I do want to ask you to say something you wish you would have said you didn't have the opportunity to say, or maybe answer a question you wish I would have asked and I didn't.
Always a fun one, right? It's like, what am I not asking you that I should be asking you? You know, I will close with this, Adrian. I'm gonna close with maybe a little piece of advice and wisdom that I experienced because of mistakes that I think maybe we all go through, that I absolutely made, and failure that I have experienced, that I know I'll experience again. This wisdom and maybe this piece of advice comes from that. And that is, you will never be, and it is okay to not be, the smartest person in the room. And as soon as you become okay with being in that room and having a seat at that table, because, I don't think that just because you walk into a room, you've earned a seat at the table. I think that there is hard work that is required out of all of us to earn the right to have a seat at the table. But let's say that you've worked hard and you've earned the opportunity to have a seat at the table, whatever the table looks like for you personally or professionally. My parting piece of advice for your audience is it's okay to not be the smartest person in that room. I mean, it is really okay to acknowledge that, you may be surrounded by people who are incredibly knowledgeable, that are incredibly wise, that are so much smarter and more tenured and experienced than you. And instead of being threatened and intimidated by that, what an exciting opportunity presents itself when we approach that with a spirit of collaboration and continued education and humility, a degree of humility. I think we're all kind of missing, myself included. That's something that we talked about working towards, skills earlier, patience being one of them. I think humility is one that we all should be working towards, always having a spirit of humility. I don't know everything. I hope I don't ever know everything. How boring would life be if we knew everything? So that would be my parting advice, Adrian. And thank you so much for having me on your podcast. This has been an absolute blast, and I am humbled and grateful for the opportunity, Adrian, to chat with you this morning.
Caroline, for our audience, right, if they want to reach out to you, how could they get in contact with you?
I love LinkedIn. You can always message me on LinkedIn. You can, my cell phone is just about everywhere. So you can contact me via phone. You can always reach out to my office at Southwest Utility Solutions and ask for me, and you will be transferred to me. There's no weird barrier to entry to get to me. You just say, I want to talk to Caroline, and they'll push you through to me. There is nothing untouchable about me or anybody on my team here. So if there's somebody you want to talk to, LinkedIn's a great way to do it, or you can email me. I'll put my email in wherever you're watching this. I'll make sure that it is typed out below for you, but it's just cferguson@swutilitysolutions.com. But all different places. If you see my face and there's a means to comment or message, I'm going to see it. So anywhere, truly.
Caroline, thank you again for taking the time out of your busy day to come, share some wisdom with us and take us on your with you on your journey. I hope we could do another conversation down the road.
Absolutely, Adrian. Thank you so much. I am truly humbled for the opportunity to be on Multifamily Chronicles, this incredible platform that you've built, and the audience that you've created. It is humbling. So thank you for having me, Adrian.
Absolutely. Everybody, thank you very much for watching us today. I'm Adrian Danila, your host, and this is Multifamily Chronicles. We hope to see you back here soon. Have a great day.